And here are the supplied wires. So I'm going to pull this back a bit so I have some space. And it looks like the positive is these two screws right here. I know you can't see that. It's really awkward to film, but these two are positive, the next two are negative. Then you have ground, neutral, and line. So we're going to pop the red wire. We'll put it in this one here. And this is all just hoping that it works. I mean, I don't really have an opportunity to test this power supply until it's all said and done, really. That's one, that's tight. And the black wire, I'll put it 2 over. Slide that in. There we go, those are tight. I'm going to lower this. I'm going to run these wires underneath here just so they're not in the way. And then I can go on installing this. So again, this is going to be the tough part. And I'm not even sure how I'm going to show you this, but I'm going to tilt that over like this. And basically the idea is you take one of these nuts and you slide them into a little groove, and then you gently take a long M3 bolt, set the panel where it needs to go, and it just fell over. Okay, I'm going to set the panel where it needs to go. I'm going to put the screw sort of almost all the way in. Put the nut in here. Hopefully it stays captive. My bolt was too far in. Yeah, it just falls right through. I'm very thankful for this kind of construction, for giving us sort of cheap enclosures, lowering the prices on things like this, but it's not the easiest thing to get aligned and get working. I'm not even sure if I'm in shot. I guess it doesn't really matter at this point. Most of you have tuned out by now. It's really hard to get this lined up properly. The bolt's going off in another direction because again this won't sit flat into its holder because of these wires. Try to bend them a little bit, but you can't make too harsh of a bend because you still need this to sort of be compliant. Am I out of shot? Sort of. You guys can't see anything anyway. Well, that truly has not worked. Okay, I think I got it lined up now. Go ahead and give it the old screw in routine. And I think that's the key. I think you just thread the nut onto the fastener and that helps. Okay, let's make sure all these wires are kind of out of the way. There we go, nothing's overly stressed. No, everything's kind of loose. That's good. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same technique over and over until all these panels are in, and I'll bring you back then so you don't have to watch me screw in a bunch of panels. And so this is what we get. This is kind of where the instructions leave you to do your own stuff. So we got the sides on, we got the middle on. I took the liberty of putting the front on. It seems like the top needs to go on before the front gets bolted. And I ran these two wires, the two big ones that we ran from the positive and negative, over to here. In hindsight, I might actually disconnect these before I power it up, just in case the polarity is not marked right, so I'd rather just check it with the multimeter. Not a problem. Got an on-off switch integrated into this. Also, there's a flex cable that goes and controls the LCD. It goes down here. And then they give you these wires, okay? So I guess the deal is that this end here, with the large end, with the 6 pins instead of 4, that goes onto the stepper motors, and then they give you these sleeves which are on these wires, and so basically you plug it into the stepper motor, and this is on the other end, so you know where to plug. Like this is E for extruder, so you know it go here. But the thing is, my 3D printer doesn't fit on my bench here. So what I did was I slid them to the other end, to the stepper motor end, and I plugged them in here, so extruder here, and then I'll know that this end here goes into the extruder stepper motor. On top of that though, I have to wire in the end stops, so the fan, cooling fan, X stop, Y stop, Z stop, bed temperature, extruder temperature, all this has to be wired in, all goes through a little port back here. And then it looks like the top goes on and then the LCD goes on. So now the issue is, like I said, it doesn't fit on my bench, which means it's not going to live on my bench, and it seems kind of awkward to move these kind of fragile wires from one end to the other. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a piece of particle board and put it on a little table behind me, mount everything onto that little table, and then finish the wiring up there, which means I'm going to have to figure out a new way to place the camera. So I think we're going to do one more thing first, which will be the spool holder. Once the spool holder is built, I'll go cut the piece of wood and we can keep going with the assembly. And so these are the final pieces of acrylic left in the kit. I can see that there's 2 upright stands, 2 holders for this PVC pipe, these separators to set the distance between the 2 stands, and it looks like these are 2 mounts for end switches. I know that my version of the kit that I bought has capacitive leveling. The bed is leveled by a capacitive sensor, so that would explain why there's 1 extra end stop mount, but why is there 2? I don't really know, but they're going to stay here probably ad infinitum. So let's start by trying to assemble these pieces. Now I find these weird captive nut type deals are a lot easier if you just start the screw through the hole, then you take your piece of acrylic there, and you slide it over the nut. It should only slide in one way. It could be a little finicky too. Trying to also do this so the camera can see. Okay, there. So it went in. Now I'm going to put the piece down, and you see the head sticks out. I'm going to take the screwdriver and drive the nut through. I'm going to hold it like this. This will get tighter and tighter. Make sure the piece fits. And so that's one piece installed. See, it installs pretty flush. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. I don't assume that this is going to take very long to build. So same thing, put the nut in first, put the nut through the hole, push the whole assembly together like so, and then drive it home. Oh, it's not good if it slides out though. And there we go. I actually don't think that these long bolts are necessary for the holders. I'm gonna just, the instructions kind of omit, yeah, this is way too long. The instructions kind of omit how long these bolts need to be. So I'm gonna take 4 of these, put them back, because I do believe those might be for the actual housing. I'm gonna take these smaller bolts. They should be long enough. Oh, actually I've got some slightly longer ones. At this point in the build, there's only kind of the leftovers. It's not much to pick from, but it seems like there will be extra hardware. So it seems like I only have 3 of these left. I have a few different ones here. Let's see what I have in the other hardware kits. Nope, these are like the M2, tiny stuff. I have these washers left over. I wonder if those were the washers I was complaining about, which weren't included in the instructions. So maybe, you know, I'll have to take back my comment about them needing to add washers. Okay, well I can only find 3 of these. So, well, at this point in the build, I'm not sure if any of them that I used were wrong, but I did, pretty sure I measured them all out. Oh, look at that, they're not long enough. So it should be the long ones, in fact. That doesn't make much sense though, if you think about it. So I either have those extremely long ones, 4 left, plus 2 here, more like one here and 1 longer one. I have 1 more here. I'm not sure how many I'm actually going to need for the acrylic. I need at least 4. So let's see, for the electronics kit. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 5, 6. It looks like I won't have enough. 1, 2, 3, 4. I will. Okay, so I'm going to use one of these very long ones because I don't know where else to put that one. I'll use one of these very long ones to hold this bracket on because I'm pretty sure it won't fit in the acrylic. I can always, or in the case for the electronics I should say. I'm pretty sure I could just steal it back if I need it. So I'm going to put that on here. I don't suppose that'll make too much difference. Or will it? I guess it depends how wide the spool is, huh? Or I have an idea. I'll take these and I'll flip them inside out. So the bolt, the threaded part will stick out. In that way, it won't interfere with the spool at all. The instructions just kind of don't really specify how to do this, so I guess you kind of just have to figure it out on your own, which is entirely fine. So like that. I'm going to hold the nuts with my fingers, just tighten these with the screwdriver. I'm not too concerned about it being overly tight because all it does is just support this roll like that. Okay, now I'm going to take 2 of these, run them through these stands, 1 and 2, first of all put the nuts. There's one there. There's another one there. Whoops. Would be nice if I had them both going the same way. Oh, they are going the same way. Well, that's great. Disregard me. I'm kind of anxious to get this finished so I can start printing stuff. Not that I assume that I have installed everything properly up to this point, but I am hoping I did. Okay, same thing here. Thread that all the way in. Such long bolts for such a tiny thing. I think it would be even fine if the acrylic was tapped. I don't think it really needs these bolt nut combos. So that says TronXY, and that says TronXY. I managed not to put them inside out. That's always good to know. All right. 2 left. 1, 2. Thread these in. One and two. Make sure these two are tight. And now our spool holder is a little bit of friction fit there. I'm sure that's not a big deal. And there we go. So your 3D printer spool goes in here and it gets drawn out. I think there are better designs for a spool holder, but that's really not my priority. My priority is get this thing printable, and now I just need to figure out how to set my 3D printer up somewhere, set the camera up somewhere that you can see, and do the final installation. And this here is the setup I've come up with to be able to film this while I install things. So as you remember, I've slid these sort of helpful tags here over to this end. So this here is how I know this is the extruder motor. Just smash the camera there, that's fine. Plug this into the extruder. That should be done. Next one, I have a little bit of a mess. I'm just going to plug it all in, make sure the wires are out of the way. So this is a Y motor, so Y motor would be this one. I got to make sure this Y motor is well clear of the table when it comes backwards too. Yeah, cable management won't come till after. I need to make sure this thing works first. Let's pull this back. Oh, that smashes there before it clicks. So yeah, I need to make sure this is folded well over. This doesn't interfere with anything. Okay. So this is Y again, but I noticed they gave me 2 Ys, so I make sure to mark this one. This is a Z motor. So the Z-axis, we got the dual Z-axis in this kit. So let me just run this over like this and plug that in over here. It's a little awkward reaching around the tripod. That's plugged in there. There's the second Z-axis motor. This one over here. Okay, what else do we have? And we have the X-axis motor, so that's this one over here. I'm going to run this kind of out of the way. And that is the X-axis motor. Okay. Now I've got 2 end stops. I've got the X-axis end stop and I have the Y-axis end stop. Technically there should be one more end stop, which would be the Z-axis, but since this thing has a capacitive sensor, it doesn't have an end stop per se. So let's go ahead and plug. So it says fan. What does this say here? Fan, cooling fan, X stop. That's the X axis I have in my hands. So this will go into X stop right here. Whoops, I guess I should run this through the hole here if I ever want to put the cover back on. So it should be the first kind of 3-pin hole. That one there. And this is the Y stop. I don't know why they give you a lot of cable for that. They do give you a lot for the extruder, because on this model the power supply and stuff is meant to be on this side. This is the front of the 3D printer this way. So it's meant to be on this side because they give you enough cable. The longest cable is the extruder, it goes up there. Okay, so we're going to put the Y stop in there. And should run that through this hole too. And I know a lot of you wire management people are getting triggered right now. That's okay. I want to make sure this actually boots up and works before we do any management whatsoever. Okay, this is all set. That's good. Okay, so next thing we can do is go for our wires for the hotbed. Now this is one of the things I might actually secure before we do our first run, because the bed is moving and I don't want the bed to be in the way of anything, and I don't want these wires to get frayed. So I will probably at least secure them sort of over here. Well, this is a mess. Yeah, at least secure them over to the side. So this can come under here. This is the bed temperature. So there should be a space for that. Z stop, B temp, and E temp. So B temp is the bed temp, and E temp is the extruder temperature. So bed temp goes here. There we go. So now we only have a few more cables to run, and that's from everything on the X-axis, and then we can boot this up and see if it runs, as well as these wires here. I'm going to be plugging these in off camera because I think it's going to be a little bit of a pain in the butt for me to stick my head under there. I don't think you'll be able to see anything, so that's fine. I can do that off camera. And yeah, so let's see. I think I'll loosen these things and bring you back. Okay, so I've got everything unbundled here. Should be able to see it all. So I think this is one thing I will cable manage early on, because the X-axis does move quite a bit, and we have a whole bunch of wires here, and they all go from the same place to the same place. So they'll be easy to manage, and I think I'm going to manage those before we start this. It'll also please some of the people watching this. Not all, but some. So I have to untangle this mess. And everything is really not bad if you do it all step by step. Don't get too concerned about the order of operations. Just make sure everything, if every one of your steps is good individually, then the sum should work just fine as well. So anyways, we have our capacitive sensor here. That goes in the Z stop. So that's that one. We have this red and black. That's our cooling fan for the extruder. Now the instructions say that if there's only one fan, so there's no parts cooling fan, put it in C fan. So C fan it is. I'm going to put it in here. I think that goes up over here. Yeah, C fan. don't like the flex on this board. I really wish the board was a bit more solid. Okay, so that's plugged into CFan, and our extruder temperature sensor, which is this little guy here, this little wire, and I'm going to put that into E-temp near the bottom. And then, aside from all the connections for the two big wires for the hotbed and the two big wires for the extruder, we are all plugged in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of cable management, just a little bit of cable management for this axis. Maybe I'll cable manage these wires too, make sure this stays out of the way. I'll bring you back, show you what I've done, and then when I bring you back, we're going to turn on this power supply with it disconnected from the board, and we'll see how much voltage comes out of here. And we might be able to set the voltage with that little potentiometer in the corner. So let me do that, and I'll bring you right back. Well, I caved, and I think I cable managed more than I thought. So I cable managed the x-axis here, I cable managed the hotbed, I made sure that the y-axis here wouldn't be any issues. And now we are ready to check to see if our power supply is truly delivering 12 volts at the right polarity. And we're ready to, after that, plug it into the board and make sure nothing blows up. So, yeah, a bit nervous because I have to use a depth adapter, because where I am right now, I'm pretty far from any plug, and the IAC cable I have is not really that long. And yeah, so we'll see. I'm not going to be anywhere near any live parts while this is happening, so it's safer than it looks. That's not great. First I'll plug this in. Okay, it's plugged in. No explosions yet. I'll turn on my multimeter, DC volts. There we go, 0 volts. And let's see. The power supply starts. 12.33 volts. That is good. That tells me the polarity is good. So far, so good. So I'm going to flip this off, put those two cables in, plug this in, and see what happens. I don't expect there to be too much to happen, but I'm going to plug it in, see what happens, and then I'm going to have to plug my laptop in and see if I can jog the head down to be able to position the bed or try to level the bed. I also, as you can see, put on that build tack, the kind of like the blue tape that comes with the kit. I think eventually I want a piece of tempered glass to go on top of this, but for now it's the kit. And so that's pretty much the end of the assembly. The only thing left to do really is cable manage all this stuff once I know everything works, close the top off of the computerized system there, and look forward to videos of the setup and the first print. As always, thanks for watching.